Hello and welcome to Cycles of Time, your weekly guide to what's happening on Earth as we make our revolutionary journey around the sun. For time immemorial, our human ancestors have created myths and meanings to help us adapt and thrive as seasons change. Join me each week to explore the intersections of these ancient cycles, from the indigenous medicine wheel to the pagan wheel of the year, the Babylonian and Greek zodiac to the I Ching, the ancient Chinese book of changes. I'm your host, Allison Dale, and this is the Cycles of Time podcast. Welcome to your weekly Cycles of Time highlights, everyone, and welcome to Autumn and Libra season. This is your weekly forecast for September 23rd to 29th, 2024, with my special guest, Rebecca Baker of The Sacred Pause. I'm really excited to share this conversation with you today. Yesterday was the autumnal equinox here in the Northern Hemisphere and spring equinox in the Southern Hemisphere. And yeah, it's a pretty powerful time. The equinox is a fleeting time of equal day and equal night, beginning our transition into the darker months of the year, into fall and winter time. It's known as Mabon or Mabon in the Celtic wheel of the year, and it is a time traditionally of harvesting the goodness that has accumulated within our external and internal gardens. A time to take stock of where we're at as we've completed the first half of the zodiac, which began in March with the spring equinox in the Northern Hemisphere and the start of Aries season. I began this podcast 6 months ago on the spring equinox, so this feels like an important milestone to note in this beautiful journey with you all. Thank you so much for listening and reading, commenting, and supporting this work of slowing down and attuning to the seasons each week from multiple perspectives. Your presence is so appreciated, and I couldn't be here without you. So thank you so much for being listeners to this show, and I would totally appreciate you spreading the word if this has brought any value to you, just sharing with a friend who might appreciate following the seasons on a week-to-week basis that we do here. My dog says, whoop, in the background, so that must be a sign to do so. Anyway, let's briefly jump into this week in the Wheel of the Year, the highlights, and then we'll enjoy a lovely conversation with Rebecca Baker of The Sacred Pause. So this week's highlights, yesterday, Sunday, September 22nd, was the September equinox, also known as Mabon or Mabon, depending on which part of the world you're from. And that's in the Celtic or pagan wheel of the year. And the September equinox is also when Libra season begins in the tropical zodiac. Always begins on the equinox. In the sidereal zodiac and Vedic zodiac, it is a bit different because that system of the zodiac tracks the stars and their precession of the equinox and how the perspective of the stars has changed over time from the wobble of the Earth's axis. But the tropical zodiac has always had in its philosophy to start Aries season along with the equinox. And so that always happens at the same time each year, just about between September 21st to 23rd. And this year it was the 22nd, yesterday. So happy fall, everyone. In the Human Design and I Ching wheel, from Monday through Thursday this week, we are in Gate 46, which is known as the Gate of Determination. And it is the gate that is the cusp between Virgo and Libra seasons. So it helped us finish up Libra season last week, starting on Friday, Virgo season. And it's welcoming us into Libra season for the beginning of this week. And then Friday through Sunday, we'll move into Gate 18, the Gate of Correction, which is the first full gate of Libra season. And we'll talk a lot more about that next week. This week, we are really focusing on Gate 46 because the Gate of Determination is my special guest's birthday gate. The themes of the week ahead are autumnal beginnings, slipper season, sweater weather, whatever that means for you, where you are. For me, definitely I am wearing my fuzzy sheepskin slippers and a cashmere sweater, and it's the first time all year that I've worn anything close to this, so definitely feels like a change of season has occurred. Another theme is pausing to dream in the liminal space, determination to live with delight, and learnings from a perspective of eternal childhood. So after a pretty intense couple of weeks that we've had leading up to that lunar eclipse in Pisces and beyond, I know myself and a lot of people have been experiencing some big upheavals, revelations, tumultuous times, changes. And so this is a week ahead of a little bit more peace as we enter Libra season that's focused on harmony and balance. And the energies of the week are really indicating that quite a bit, which is a necessary respite after so much has been kind of stirred up with that eclipse. We are still between two eclipses. The next one is next week on October 2nd, and that is going to be a solar eclipse in Libra, a new moon solar eclipse. So we're still kind of in this bardo, this liminal space that between eclipse time twice a year brings to us. And so that's definitely a piece of this. It's not like a concrete time to be in the world and feel super productive per se. But as you'll see in this episode and in this conversation, there's a lot to be said for that liminal space and for being on the cusp between seasons, for being between eclipses. And so I welcome you to embrace that as much as possible and know that this energy that we're in is a little bit more foot off the gas, I would say, than the past couple of weeks. In the wheel of the year, we're in the medicine wheel direction west, which is symbolic of water and adulthood and the emotional nature of being. In the Taoist 5-element whooshing cycle, we are in the season of metal, which comes at kind of after the season of earth in late summer and before the season of water in deep winter. So fall and early winter, this metal season. Our pagan Wheel of the Year season is now Mabon, and our zodiac season is Libra, beginning yesterday and lasting through October 22nd. Our moon phase is we're in a waning moon, waning from that full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces to that new moon solar eclipse in Libra. And in the I Ching and human design and gene keys systems, we are in 46, gate or gene key or hexagram 46 from Monday to Thursday, and then gate 18 from Friday to Sunday. 46 that we'll be talking about today is known as rising up or sheng in the I Ching, and it's known as the gate of determination in human design. And in the gene keys, it moves from the shadow of seriousness to the gift of delight to the city of ecstasy. So all really good keywords to think about. I'm curious how you all rang in the equinox yesterday or last Sunday, if you're listening to this later in the week. Do you have any special celebrations or rituals that you do for this particular meaningful point in time? I celebrated this year by participating in my neighborhood's annual art studio tour in Santa Fe. So I converted my home into an art gallery for 2 days and showed my paintings and mixed media collages to a lot of people coming through. It was very well attended this year. There were probably about at least over 300 people who came through my doors. And so it was a lot of talking and standing and chatting, but really fun experience. And this year I hung my work alongside my partner Jackson's incredible timescape photography. And my brother and sister-in-law are woodworkers, and they make gorgeous home goods and furniture out of hardwood. And so they were selling that outside of my kind of dining room area. And so it was fun to have 3 of us in the house and have very different types of media that we work with. But as far as that being a celebration of the equinox, for me, it felt like a really lovely way to literally take stock of all the work that we've all created throughout this year so far, and to get to chat about it and share in artistic inspiration with our neighbors and the world beyond. So a really good point of reflection through art. And then over the weekend, the winds were really, there was a crazy storm on Saturday that blew in that lasted a very short amount of time, but it blew in a much chillier weather pattern. And I think on Friday I was wearing, shorts and a t-shirt. And then today I'm in my cashmere and slippers. So that wind blew in fall, and everyone who came through for the tour, the first comment was how, it suddenly feels like fall, and wishing each other a happy equinox yesterday on Sunday. So it felt quite like marked by the entire community. And this weekend, I also got the opportunity to chat with my inspiring friend and mentor, Rebecca Baker, who is my guest on the show today. Her birthday was yesterday, September 22nd, Sunday, which was, again, the fall equinox and Mabon and the cusp of Virgo and Libra seasons. So in our conversation, we got to get deep talking about the profound beauty of her favorite month, September, her birthday month, which I have to agree with, probably mine too, and how this season shows up in her hometown of Devon in the UK, the importance of taking time to pause and be present, which is really central to her work in the world, and the profound value of liminal spaces and dream time, and how these are all kind of intersectional at this moment of the equinox. In the human design and gene key systems, Rebecca was born when the sun was transiting through gate 46 that I just talked about, the gate of determination. And this is the gate that is being activated by the sun's transit right now from last Friday through this Thursday. So we'll dive into this seasonal shift along with this energies of this gate. This transitional gate from Virgo to Libra also happens to be the gate of my moon and my Mercury in my natal birth chart. So it's personally super meaningful to my life and has been fun to contemplate over the past few days. And my Mercury is in Virgo, in the last degrees of Virgo, and my moon is in the first degrees of Libra. So it's interesting to me that I've always thought of those as very different energies, but they're being unified by this gate that spans both the end of Virgo and the beginning of Libra season. And Mercury is all about communication. So and the moon is all about our emotions and kind of our subconscious. And so for me, having this gate show up in those key parts of my life, it feels like no wonder I've always felt a resonance with Rebecca since I first met her as a mentor at my breathwork facilitator training with integrative breath. And she's still doing some work through the breathwork school that I studied with. It is now broken up into two breathwork schools. The co-founders of Integrative Breath have now taken on their respective continents, and Ray Rydell of Integrative Breath is based in Colorado, where I finished out my training, and she was partnered with Steph Magenta of Seven Directions Breathwork based in the UK. And so it was wonderful to work with both of them and all of them, and Rebecca is still a part of the Seven Directions Breathwork group over in the UK. So Rebecca is a ceremony facilitator, a Reiki master, a licensed breathwork practitioner, and she's a lover of creating immersive spaces. She had for many years worked in the creative arts and theater, and she's also a lifelong student of Indigenous culture and shamanism. She combines a deep commitment to personal development with continuous professional development and years of experience holding compassionate, trauma-informed space. And she's just truly a lovely, lovely human being. She hosts a monthly circle gathering called The Sacred Pause. And I really love the description she has for about the deep need for this space. So I'll read that just right before we get into the interview. She says, there is a space between all of the doingness of modern life in which we can listen to our deepest truths, hear the whispers of the world as the seasons turn, and dream into being the life that we were born to live. In all ancient cultures, there are pauses built into the turning year. Time to reflect, to celebrate, to release the old, and to bless the new. The sacred pause is a space to do just that. To notice where we are at in the moment, to ask ourselves, how am I? to reflect on what is nourishing us, inspiring us, or holding us back, to celebrate and to release, to listen and to share, in community with one another and in connection with glorious nature. So reading that just makes me feel a deep, deep connection to this work. It feels very similar to this Cycles of Time project in a lot of ways of just, hearing the whispers of the world as the seasons turn, slowing down enough to do that. Just such beautiful and profound action in that pausing. And, with this particular season as well, this fall equinox, this is one of those times that she was referring to in ancient cultures where there is a pause built in to reflect and celebrate and release the old and bless the new. And so here we are. I'd love to hear in the comments how it is that you might be doing that in your own life and what's coming up for you when you pause a little bit. And so with that, I will jump right now into the conversation with Rebecca Baker. Enjoy. It's so lovely to have you here on Cycles of Time, Rebecca. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. This is Rebecca Baker here with me today. We met when she was a mentor of mine in my breathwork facilitator training with integrative breath. And from the moment I met you, I felt a deep resonance, Rebecca, of just, a deep calm and a deep kind of similar presence, and just felt so much support from you during the time that we had together with you as my mentor. And so I'm so grateful that you're willing to talk to me here about your birthday, and about this season of your birthday. We're here for this Intro to Libra season episode, and Rebecca's birthday is on Sunday, or yesterday from the time that we'll release this episode. And that's, September 22nd. So thank you again so much for being here.
It's really beautiful to be here. Since you've begun the podcast, it's really spoken to me as well. I love to talk about cycles of time, and it's really special to be here to talk, just days before my birthday, and in the same month. You're a September birthday as well, Alison?
That's right. Yeah, my birthday was September 8th, in the Gate of Confusion in Virgo season. And so, it was fun to do a deep dive into my own, kind of chemistry of the season. And this time of year is one of my favorite times of year for sure. And I love to talk about it as well. So looking forward to diving in this. We'll talk about it from a lot of these different perspectives, from, just the feeling of the season, the elemental qualities of the season, the, pagan and Celtic wheel of the year, which I know you do some work with, as well as, astrology, human design, gene keys, all of that. So, I figured, it's just really nice to see how people relate to this season when they were born from different languaging, and anything that you have to bring up during our conversation from your background. I know that you have background in being a Reiki master, as well as a student of shamanism and a lot of different things, ceremony facilitation and breathwork, of course. So I'd love to hear from you what it is that you do and what you're focusing on now. Just as far as your work in the world.
Yeah, thank you, Alison. So, right now, it's so interesting, and you speak a lot about cycles and circles and spirals, and that's very much how I feel very connected to that patterning in my life. So currently, a big part of my work is breathwork, conscious connected breathwork specifically, which is breathing with no pauses at the top or the bottom. So we'll find our first circle there. And I now teach and train students of conscious connected breathwork with 7 Directions breathwork. And underpinning my work always is a love of ceremony and space holding and circle. And I find myself at a point where I'm really reflecting on how I have wound up working with 7 Directions and as a breathwork facilitator, when my background is in creative arts, performing arts, education, but particularly my creative practice and my connection to circle has been there throughout my life. So working in circle, working creatively, recognizing the magic of being in circle, a priority of collaboration, and my study of ritual and ceremony has really been ever since, I think started from when I was, when I went to church when I was a kid, but now I hold circle and ceremony, particularly at the Celtic fire ceremonies during the Celtic wheel of the year. And I also, a really strong part of my work at the moment is around pausing and slowing down. And again, really inspired by my connection to nature and my connection to the cycles of the year. My feeling is that slowing down and integrating pauses into our life is the medicine of our times, when we stop and slow down and can really see and feel a connection to nature and realize that we are part of it. We view the planet differently, we view ourselves differently, and we view our relationship as custodians of the earth and co-creators with one another. We feel it instead of just learn about it. So creating pauses through ceremony and through connection to the breath is what lights me up.
Wow, you said that so eloquently. I love that idea of being, connected to the earth as being one with it, in the sense that I've heard that, in order to be an environmentalist for a long time, people kind of thought we have to take care of something other than ourselves and, take care of the earth. And sometimes that can feel hard to do if it feels like it is other. But when you bring it close to your heart and say, I am the earth, it makes it a lot easier to tend to the entirety of the ecosystem, with your body being an integral part of it. So yeah, you just said that so beautifully. I love this notion of the sacred pause. And I've been receiving your invitations and invites, emails about this monthly circle gathering of the sacred pause. And that phrasing is so beautiful. And I definitely feel that in your presence since the time we worked together with the breathwork, in just that sense of slowing down and connecting with just the most basic elemental parts of ourselves. So I would love to hear a little bit more about the sacred pause and how you came to that naming, and what that workshop looks like that you host.
Yeah, thank you. So, the sacred pause was a phrase that I came across through a psychotherapeutic practitioner called Tara Brach. And it's a Buddhist concept and a Taoist concept originally, the notion of stopping, pausing, but with a heightened sense of awareness in that space. So I talk about it as it's the difference between putting the brakes on and pausing and noticing you've paused. So Tara Brach brought it into conversation within the psychotherapeutic community as a tool of mindfulness, really, of giving the nervous system breaks within the day, rather than feeling that we're either doing, and then lengthy pauses, holidays, breaks, but they're actually bringing in the notion of not just pausing, but then the honor that you bring into that pause. And it really speaks to me, I think, because I've always had a real connection to the liminal space and the dream time. And that really comes in, I think, with this birthday in equinox. It is a liminal space. It's a space it is a space of balance, but it's like a moment, like it is itself a moment, right? It's a moment between seasons. We have this equality of light and dark in this moment. So I wonder if there really is something in, me arriving in that moment. I was born at 4:35 in the afternoon as well, so dusk.
Wow.
So like right at kind of as we move into dusk in this moment. So that sense of liminal space is really important to me, and it's important to me as a place of dreaming and of creativity. And so in the sacred pauses that I create, there's spaciousness. And I think, I do call them, so sometimes I hold a whole day of retreat. The monthly pauses that I'm holding in the community platform at the moment, the Seven Directions community platform, are just 30 minutes, conscious pausing. So connecting with the breath, bringing in some contemplation about the week, and we listen to a piece of music. So I was talking this morning about listening when I was younger, and I would get an album on cassette, and that would be me for like a couple of hours. The cassette's in, listen to a whole album and lose yourself in that space that's been created for you by the band or the artist. And I think we have less and less of those immersive spaces now that we have the capacity to multitask all the time. So very often, if I'm listening to music, it will be on the go, and I think we are a multitasking people at the moment, and so in the pauses that I create, and this is an interesting pitch as well when you're when you're presenting this as an offer, is come and do nothing. In a world which is like, what am I going to get? What am I going to achieve?
What certification will I have? Totally.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's this kind of playful suggestion of, what happens in your body when you consider the idea that you might have achieved nothing at all at the end of this day. So it's a curious one to describe, and I think that I definitely can find myself talking about the benefits of pausing in how it impacts productivity, because there's studies about this, right? A 4-day week means you're more productive, or if you rest more, then you can do more. And I know that that's something that I can quote that and speak to that as well. But it always has a kind of ricochet response in me of going, do we need that as justification to sit and watch a bee gathering nectar or the clouds pass by? Ultimately, it's joy, pleasure and joy. That's it.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Yeah.
That's what we're here for. And we don't give that enough, value. That is it, that feeling of joy and pleasure.
That's right. Yeah, I know. Getting into the business world and having to create offerings, I've heard that the only things people pay for are something related to money, to health, or to relationships. And I think that that's true, perhaps, but thinking about it, something like this is a relationship with yourself as very much worth investing your time into, and not having to have justification for that. I think you're totally right that there could be a million studies on why this would help you in your achievement and your goals. But yeah, I remember when I became a mother, I was the most excited about having those early years of childhood to kind of just lay down at the level of the grass and look at the dewdrops collecting, on the tips of the grass, and see the flies buzzing around and just being at that slowed down pace. And it was almost like becoming a mother gave me the excuse to be able to do that for a window of time where that was okay. But now that my daughter's off to kindergarten, I'm like, oh, back to the races, and so
that's so interesting. Yeah. I really resonate with that. I think that was a time for me as well that I started to. I think it's so interesting when your baby first arrives as well. It is a shift right into that for once, the thing that you're doing, which is being with your baby, feeding your baby, getting your baby to sleep, that's the thing you're supposed to be doing, and you're doing it. And although I'm sure, I'm looking back on it, my daughter's 8 now, so I'm sure I have this very rose-colored view of that period of time now, but because I'm sure there was loads of this doubt, and am I doing it enough, and am I doing it right? But you are doing the thing. You're doing that it is immersive, isn't it? And I think you have to come down onto that, to their level. And time does bend because of the sleepless nights, and you're in that liminal space. And I do think that I think that for me, that change of pace, that happened was something that I didn't and don't want to let go of.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like, it's so easy to just think of it as a short window where that's allowed. But I do think that learning from that experience and bringing it into the rest of my life feels like the most beautiful gift that that period of sleeplessness and, all of the hard work that it is to raise a little being, to be able to have the gift of seeing the slowness for what it is and just being in the rhythms of life that you can't distract from because it's so important to be there. And yeah, definitely. I'm curious when you pause at this time of year right now where you are. You're in is East Devon, is that right, in the UK?
Yeah.
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 Okay, and I know you live near a beautiful coastline, and I'm curious when you pause at this moment in time there, what is it that you're experiencing in the world around you and in the changes of the seasons in that part of the world?
Yeah, so that's such a gorgeous invitation of a question, Alison, because I noticed that as soon as we get to September, just love this month so much, and it's an inquiry without answer of, is that because it's my birthday month, or is it because it just is the best month of the year? It just is.
I feel you.
Yeah, but I was reflecting on that today because as I've got older, when I was younger, it was like, oh, this is going to get to have a birthday party and da, da, da. My sort of celebrations in that way are much, much less as I get older. But September I still just love it so much. So I'm reining myself in here, Alison, because my mind's going, "Whoa!"
I love how excited. Yes, I do feel it. I love it too. Just the colors, the taste of the air, everything. Yeah,
that is exactly. So that's gorgeous, and I love to hear as well how different it is where you are in New Mexico from where I am. So we've had. And we always get it, I think, around my birthday is this final dose of sunshine. And it feels, and everyone's smiling again because we just got back to the kind of, beginning of September, summer's over, and then we get sunshine. And in my experience, it's all like, I reckon I could count on one hand definitely the rainy birthdays that I've had over the last 20 years. Like, it's almost always sunny, and the September sunshine has this treat because it feels like it shouldn't be warm and sunny, but it is. So everyone's even more smiley about it. It feels like a cheeky extra treat so that you've got, but the sunlight is different to the August sunlight because the sun is lower in the sky. The smell, and I love that, because as you said, I do live right near, I can see the sea from my front garden. In even a matter of weeks ago in August, when we'd get some summer rain, you'd get that dry, dusty smell. And now the smell of the air has just got that crispness, particularly in the mornings to it, like a freshness about it. The house martins and the swallows have got an extra urgency about them. They're really so they arrive in May where I live, and they'll be heading off back to Africa before too long. So they're kind of flitting about, and there's a fewer of them, and they have a greater energy about them. I'm so blessed where I live because the moonrise is pretty much at like 12 o'clock, if you like. If I'm looking out on the ocean, it's actually just not quite what are we on. That it's at about 11 o'clock. So the October full moon will be dead on.
Wow.
But it is just stunning. And of course, the air temperature isn't too cold yet. And with the, in that spirit of equality, the difference between the air temperature and the sea temperature is not a lot, so it's a perfect time of year for swimming in the sea. So I had a beautiful swim in the moonlight ocean on Monday.
For the harvest moon, full moon. Right. Oh, beautiful.
So
my
it's
gosh.
beautiful. So it's just bracing enough in the ocean to feel exhilarating, but it's not. I mean, it never gets warm. The sea never gets warm here, but it's definitely you can stay in for 20 minutes or half an hour or so comfortably.
Beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the other thing that I notice with connection to to nature at this time of year, so the trees are only just starting to turn at this point, but something that I really wanted to bring in that is a kind of evolution of my relationship with the festivals of the wheel of the year is allowing nature to let you know what you're celebrating or what your mood is, because I love the wheel of the year as a framework, and I love the pauses that it brings in these different points of the year. But as I get older and my practices develop, I notice that I don't want to be told how to celebrate that moment. That actually sometimes I certainly know that I've got to, like, in bulk and sometimes even Beltane, and it's still chucking it down with rain.
Right.
And it just isn't flower. We're not at flower crowns yet.
Totally.
And I
Yeah.
think that the pausing is about that listening in. What do we want to celebrate? And I think my connection to this, to autumn equinox and Marbon, is I love the opportunity to harvest what's happened in the year so far and to celebrate that. So for me, there's not, we're just considering what to keep and let go of. It's not that kind of putting to bed that October brings and Samhain brings, but it's this, there is that opportunity to celebrate and contemplate. It's almost got a kind of sepia nostalgia to it, rather than the sadness or the letting go or that happens a bit later.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I know that in Taoist thought, it's the equinox is a time where yin and yang are equally balanced, and so across the globe, there's a lot of symbolism of balance and harmony. But that those words can become so kind of cliche and meaningless when you just hear them again and again. Libra is balance; it's the scales, and and the equinox is about balance. But I think you're right, just really paying attention to the local environment and the current moment. And there is that similarity of, Mabon being the second of the two harvest festivals in that wheel of the year, with Lammas being the first. But this is kind of that wrapping up of the harvest, and knowing that all of the fruits and vegetables and grains are already kind of starting to be packed away, but there's still, some nuts and berries to be harvested perhaps, or, just kind of, yeah, there's a call to pay attention to
There's a stock taking, I think, almost,
right,
isn't there? There's
right.
this kind of, and I think for me as well with the birthday, I think a lot of people have that feeling around their birthday, but I think particularly at that time, there's a kind of inner stock taking. Where am I at? How is it? What have I got? What's still to, what are my desires? What have we got? What do we want to carry forward? And I love that you bring in the yin and yang, and I'd love to hear more about that relationship with the I Ching and the other philosophies as well, because I think one of the things that we can forget with equinox and the balance, and I'd love to hear more about the Libran perspective on this as well, is because we can think of balance as everything being all okay, right? And we talk about this in breathwork and our nervous system practice, don't we? It isn't, balance isn't everything just being all okay. It's about an equal balance of light and dark and light in dark.
Right.
It's really, and I think that's so important to recognize, that balance is an embracing of both of those, not balance being this kind of flat line of everything being okay.
Right. It's not it's like you said earlier, it's not a hard stop. It's not like we've reached the plateau and here we are in balance. It's almost this, it's momentary, and it requires not effort necessarily, but it does require attention and noticing more than almost any other time of year. I think that I like to think of this image of a ball, that there's somebody walking on top of this kind of constantly moving globe, and in order for them not to fall off of the top, they have to keep walking. Like, you have to take one step in front of the other in order for that wheel to keep turning. And I think I've seen an animation of it. I don't know if I'm explaining it quite properly, but
I
it's
love
this
it.
idea of
Yeah.
kind of just a man walking, and you must keep moving. And so there is
Yeah.
this moment of time where we have equal night and equal day, and And it is this moment to pay attention to that, but it doesn't mean that we're stopping. I think it actually means that we're maybe paying more attention to everything that's happening from, the both sides of light and dark. Yeah, and when it comes to the Virgo Libra cusp here, because, my birthday in early September is Virgo season, and then you're right on the beginning of Libra season. And I think that being in this space, the human design gate and I Ching hexagram that your birthday is in is a cusp gate where it has the end of Virgo season and the beginning of Libra season within that energy. And so I think that's interesting to think about, this time in between, the liminal space that you spoke about, that is about kind of the discernment and discrimination of Virgo, and kind of picking apart the wheat from the chaff and the rotten from the ripe, and those kind of archetypes, and then moving into the distribution of that and kind of putting those, all of the gatherings of the harvest onto the scales and saying, okay, this is for the community, this is for the larger whole. It's so lovely, but it is that place between Cycles of Time, the Rebecca, and the other. Thank you so much for taking the time, the light and the dark, here. And a lot of opposites are being considered at this time of year. So, I'm curious how you have resonated with your sun sign, your astrological sun sign, throughout your life, or what that significance is for you.
It's interesting because I have always, growing up, although my birthday is right on the cusp, and sometimes, depending on what you read, it's mostly Virgo, occasionally it's Libra, but I have an older sister whose birthday is 4th of October, so she's totally Libra. So just in that way that we do in families, go, well, you're that, so I'll be Virgo.
Right,
So
okay.
I've always identified with Virgo, but more recently, when I've looked at my astrology charts and people have showed me, everything's in, there's hardly anything in Virgo. And actually, there's a much greater resonance with Libra. Honestly, I think so that's thrown me, because I've always had the birthday cards that have got the Virgo imagery, and I have, I'm identified as neurodiverse. My version of perfectionism is I guess I have high standards for myself. Looking around from what I can see, Alison, beyond the Zoom screen, it doesn't look like a Virgo's house.
That's what my mom always told me too. She's like, I thought you were supposed to be neat and tidy. I'm like, sorry, I didn't get that trait. Yeah.
So I think actually it's been my relationship with the Gene Keys has been a real opening out and a real expanding into my awareness of my in a way that feels very real and very much more perhaps relevant to me, having, as I say, grown up with the kind of idea that I'm a Virgo and not quite feeling that, when actually I may have been more Libra all along.
Interesting. Do you know, I haven't read your chart, your astrology chart, but do you know what other planets you have in Libra, or if there's some other placements there though? Yeah.
There's that's it. It's what did someone said, you're barely a Virgo according to my charts. So I'm not sure what's where.
Okay. Yeah. I have my moon in Libra, and so I feel a resonance with Libra as well, in the sense that the moon is about kind of your embodied experiences and your emotional experiences, kind of subterranean, subconscious experiences in life, whereas the sun sign would be maybe a conscious kind of way that you shine outward, perhaps, to the larger world. And so I've also felt that more aligned with my moon in some ways in Libra, as far as how I feel inside, but maybe from the outside I appear more Virgo to some. And it's such a complex, I think sun sign astrology of just the horoscopes in the newspaper definitely has done a disservice opposed to, people not feeling resonance with the stereotypes of that sign necessarily. But I do agree that when you get into, you add in the other planets and where they are at the time of your birth, and also add in the kind of micro seasons of the gene keys or human design or the I Ching. It's kind of how I like to frame them, because they're it's a little bit more specific of a reading from a very specific slice of the wheel of the year, rather than an entire 1/12 of the year. It's like 1/64th, and you can kind of get a little bit more detail into that.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to hear that you resonate with that system, and I'm curious to know what you know about it, or what it is that resonates with you about your gene keys and this. Yeah.
I think as a system, I just find it a beautiful structure, and I think that and as you can imagine, because it's founded on contemplation, because the idea is that as we move through the gates, what is offered in every gene key is a journey and is a contemplation and is infinite, in that we never move from one location to the other, but we move between. In every gene key there's spaciousness. I think with what the gene my learning about the gene keys has brought me is a real sense of peace, having gone through life feeling living lots of adventures and having lots of different career paths, which, as I spoke about at the beginning, I can now see how they are all absolutely both the same path with lots of different roles. Discovering that in my gene keys, I'm here for the adventure, here for the ride. That my core truth is that life is beautiful. Like it's just a delight to be here. Like at a real soul level, I just feel like, what? This experience is insane and intense.
Yes.
And just such a gift, and so I'm blown away by it. And so I think some of the phrases, so like that, one of the phrases and again, the neurodiversity means I always say this number and go, is it 42? Is it
46?
46.
46.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
It's hard to keep track of the numbers. I'm not a numbers
lot of
person
numbers.
either. Yeah. I always get thrown off. But yeah, 46.
46 is that one of the phrases at the end of that description is that you have that quality of the eternal child. And I think that has been a real oh, okay, so I'm not missing anything by I've completely stopped doing that. Should grow up, should take this more seriously, should invest in this. Oh no, I'm giving up on this project again because something else has come along. That's how I roll. I'm here for a good time. I'm here for the adventure. I'm one of life's enthusiasts. I love to be lit up and enthused about a project. It doesn't take a lot for me to be really enthusiastic. I'm definitely that. My daughter and I trying to leave the house or go anywhere is ridiculous because she's as distractible as I am. We're just, it's like, there's a flower, there's a squirrel, there's a tree.
Yes.
So I think the gene keys and then the depth of that description, and as I've got it. It's coming through in my answer a little bit, as it is with the 46th gene key. It's the moving from seriousness through to delight and ecstasy.
Yes.
And so, where I slip up is where I take everything too seriously and I get too strategic. And for years, I've been grasping to be more serious, more strategic. Come on, grow up, be you've lost the way again. When in fact, the effort of being more serious and more grown up was me losing my way. The more that we can relinquish that, the more flow there is, and the more delight there is, and the more fulfillment there is. And crucially, I think, the more of service I can be, me and my most delighted and enthusiastic and passionate. That is what I bring, and I think that's I'm still, you can probably see in my body language, that's still something that feels a little awkward for me, of like, can I just be like, is that okay? Is that enough?
Right.
Is that enough? Surely I need to be a little bit serious. But again, I think that comes back to like the values of the culture that we grew up in, and that we're raised in. And I think that's why, you've heard me describe, I'm sure, pausing is a power move. It's a radical act. When we as mothers decided to parent our kids in that way, that was a radical act to do that, to choose not to choose not to be sucked in to having to be pulled back into a pace of life that didn't feel right for us or for our kids. It's big moves, and that I say that with real awareness of the privilege that I have to be able to say that, and it's insane amount of privilege that I have to, and I do have an awareness, and I also, I think this is the other thing that I am coming to terms with, and I'm grateful for my growing awareness of, is that this delight, as my pusscat, you might be able to hear meow.
I do.
Yeah, that's
So
my distraction. Oh, there's my cat.
Good things to be distracted by. Trees, squirrels, kitty cats, nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
Is the that sense of joy and delight, that's my DNA, that's my gene keys. So as much as I do feel like, I'm glad that my growing connection to that way means that I feel more like let's bring that into the world. No, I can't convince everyone of that. That isn't. I don't ever. We've all got our different paths, and thank goodness someone's taking it seriously.
Yes, right. Yeah, right. We can't all be filled with delight all the time, but you can, and you should. Yes, yes. Oh my gosh, I have tingles running down my spine hearing you speak about that, because I see the joy coming through you, and also that, the fact that might feel new to be to allow yourself to get to that place of like, maybe that is it, maybe that is the point, and and I no wonder I've felt so resonant with you since the very beginning, because I have my Mercury and my moon, my conscious Mercury and moon in this same gate, and so that's kind of my communication and my embodied sensation of this life, where I too have been kind of accused of thinking too much, being too serious, trying to get everything lined up throughout my life. And I think it was an accurate accusation by the people who told me that, I'm taking things a little too seriously. And as I get older, realizing that by being in my joy and in my delight and not having to hold that back or meet others on a level of kind of wherever that frequency is, but maintaining the color and the vibrancy and the joy that is found in these small things like squirrels. And it's funny you say squirrels, because when I was in college, we don't have too many squirrels in New Mexico, a lot more chipmunks, but I went to school in the South in Louisiana, and there were a lot of squirrels on my college campus, and I would just sit outside and watch them like doing their squirrel thing. And all my friends that were there who had a lot more experience with squirrels were just like, well, that's a squirrel. What is wrong with you? And I was just like, let's go join me for a squirrel watching adventure. So I very much resonate with your delight in these things. And I'm so glad that your daughter is also one that wants to go along for the ride and on these adventures with you. And it's beautiful. I mean, seriousness to delight to ecstasy, as the gene key path. It feels like one thing I remember reading in the gene keys was that I think they said seriousness is one of the worst illnesses, or I think it said illnesses, but all of humanity, because it's this holding on to control, and this desire to need to make sure that everything is fixed, and that's kind of a losing battle. And so the more you stay in that and don't allow for the delight to come through in these moments of pause, the more you're holding back from the world, and from your true connection with the larger world. And so, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and as you were saying that, Alison, as well, I was feeling that sort of that sense of seriousness and the word, but the because what I want to say, I think, is that the sense of seriousness has something a little bit like the words nice or normal. That it's not that there isn't a place for having a sense of what needs changing, and for having a sense of when there is appropriate outrage and grief around what is unfolding for humanity at this point, as we're in this phase of deconstruction and renewal, and all that is so worthy of effort. But I think that it is that sense of seriousness that is, it doesn't feel like there's no rebellion in seriousness. There's not an action in that. And we need, when, God knows we need those rebellious acts, and we need that the fire of revolution and of creativity and of new ways and of a sense of injustice. But serious doesn't meet that. Seriousness is like a kind of flat line, isn't it? I think that's what it feels. That's what the word feels like. It's like how it stops you dead. It's and this is really strong feeling in my body about it's looking down. It's like studying the minutiae so much that you actually can't make the great gestures that we need, or the great changes that we need. To do that, there has to be a more elevated view. And I think that is where delight comes in, and where pausing comes in. Because if we stop, we don't have to wait long for something like a squirrel to come past, or a flower, or a bee, or a cloud, or a person with a smile, or a memory in our head that can bring us delight. If we have the luxury for that, and again, I notice my privilege in that, and I know that external factors and the impact that external factors have on people's nervous systems means that isn't always available to everybody, but it is. It's a wish for humanity, certainly.
Absolutely. And to hold that as the North Star, and to provide an example of that. I appreciate you, discussing your privilege and the luxuries that, oftentimes, just I think being comfortable in your body and feeling safe in your own body is a huge privilege in this world that we live in. And it takes work for all of us. I know that, through breath work and through a lot of the trauma-informed practices that you have done and have put a lot of serious time and effort into, it unfolds that safety that allows for delight. And it's not just given to you. It's something that does require its own type of work on an embodied level, rather than necessarily that serious looking down, analyzing all the details kind of level of seriousness,
Yeah, I love that you brought that in, Alison, as well as the sense of, that delight is available within. My list of the externals, but absolutely that the breath work and conscious connected breath work in particular, it's possible that through that work we can really genuinely collect with a delight within, and that's golden.
I agree. I definitely agree. I mean, I think people from all walks of life can tap into that internal reservoir and, untangle a lot of the things that have happened throughout the course of the external experiences and circumstances. In the gene keys, they do focus on this gate being an embodied gate, or this gene key being a very embodied gene key, and like you said, the eternal childhood gene key. And one thing that I remember reading in it is that it kind of focuses focuses on the experiences from 0 to 7 years, where we learn how, in that time, we are very much in our bodies. There's a certain natural harmony to children, like we were talking about earlier. And it's kind of the time in life when we recognize if we feel safe in our bodies or if we feel less than safe in our bodies. And I know in the breathwork training that we did together, we worked with the presence process, this book by Michael Brown that also talks about that first 7 years and these 7-year kind of chunks of life, but that being a really impactful time. There's a quote that I wanted to read that really struck me about kind of the work that you do in as far as embodiment. And it says that what many people don't realize is that the body must feel safe, not the mind. Almost all human health problems can be traced back to the primary period of imprinting when our bodies relax into their natural internal harmony. And says that a lot of ongoing health issues can be traced back to a point in our first 7 years where our bodies stopped feeling safe. And sometimes, the Gene Keys can get very statements, this is like the truth. And sometimes I have to be questioning it a little bit. But I do, being the mother of a 5-year-old and in that critical period, I see how much more the body is the wisdom keeper in those early years. And so just relating that to what it is that you're doing in your work of pausing and kind of returning to that state of childhood. And it's just such an important and serious task in this world. So
yeah, that's beautiful. When you were speaking, it reminded me of maybe it's a quote or whether it's a quote that's become phrase, become saying, but the truth that the mind listens to the body doesn't listen to the mind. So the positive mental attitude, the positive thinking, the imprinting, the arguing, the rationalizing will only ever get us so far if the nervous system, if the body is feeling unsafe or the body is feeling out of balance. If we can bring a sense of safety into the body, the mind will listen. It happens that way round. And when that was described to me in that simple phrase, I thought, that is it, isn't it? And that is the work that we're doing with conscious connected breathwork, but functional breathwork, any kind of presencing that we're doing of the body through the breath or through movement practice. We're letting the body have that. We're re-empowering the body and letting the body lead. And that felt so potent. I relate it back to when I'm getting in cold water. There's no amount or the difference in the experience of come on, come on, you'll feel better afterwards, to just being able to breathe slow and low through the nose, feeling my ribs expand through the sides and back, and just walking into the ocean. My body feels safe, so the mental chatter just dissolves. It works that way round, and that was a really beautiful realization for me. And it really came to me when you were speaking about that importance of that embodied sense of safety is everything.
Yeah, I love that with the cold water. I mean, I think that's such a beautiful example of how many times doing anything scary or hard that we try to psych ourselves up by telling us a mindset shift. And not to say that that doesn't work for some and that that's not important as well, but if you don't tie that to something happening in the body, it doesn't, it needs to have that connection between mind and body. And that strikes me as really interesting between the Virgo and Libra. I think Virgoans are known to be quite mental and analytical, and Librans are known to be kind of more embodied and like this certain gracefulness to the Libra archetype. And grace to me just feels like someone who is in their body, who feels what it feels like to be embodied. And so it's an interesting, to be on that cusp and to kind of put these together, as far as it's not one or the other, but that it does often start with the body as this place of this alignment. And one thing that when I was doing some research on this gate in the I Ching, it is known as earth over wind, I believe. Let me just make sure that that's right before I go on. But it's each of the I Ching hexagrams has 2 trigrams that are elemental. And that's kind of what makes up that's what makes up all of the interpretations for the gene keys in human design, are these initial elemental kind of combinations within the I Ching. And so earth over wind is kind of like, it's called rising up is another name for it. And it's, to me, that evokes kind of, that rising feeling of in your body up to your mind. And the original character for rising up and for this hexagram in the I Ching was a ladle that scholars have researched to symbolize the Big Dipper, Ursa Major, this constellation. And they've tied it. There's a couple of great I Ching scholars who have tied Gate 46 to the Great Bear, to the Big Dipper. And I was reading something about how there was a sacrifice performed to honor the Great Bear up on the top of a mountain during the equinox time in ancient China. And it was about kind of giving honor to the great emperor who was kind of riding the chariot of the Great Bear. And I don't know that much about Chinese cosmology, and so definitely not an expert there. But as I read it, what came to mind is that the Big Dipper has the 2 stars. If you trace, the 2 stars of the Big Dipper, they're pointing to the North Star. And so the way to find the North Star in the sky is to find the Big Dipper and then look at the 2 stars that make up the end of the ladle, and those align and point straight to the North Star. And so in thinking about the ancient history of the meaning of this gene key and this hexagram, I was just really struck by that kind of balance there and that alignment between body and mind, and that sacrifice almost that we bring forth as we are striving to bring that type of balance between our bodies and minds, pointing to our North Star. So a lot in there. I was reading a lot and kind of going on this deep dive and was just like, wow, no, this all kind of ties together in this beautiful way. So I just wanted to share that
beautiful.
story.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I really love that. And that sense of, the balance showing us the way towards the North Star. And Alison, as well, what I love is, again, it speaks to me of the liminal space, that you, as you're reading this, and that's where those links come through from, isn't it? There's a dreamy quality of it where I could hear, as you were describing that, your own kind of imaginal journey into that, and what you see and what you feel and what comes up as you're reading that. And then that's how all of this weaves together. It's gorgeous.
Right. It is this beginning of the season where the veil is getting thinner and we are more, I think of, once we get into October and Samhain and, that time of year, it's definitely a very liminal space time of tapping into the ancestors and the power of the past and the future and the present and, all of the different types of time and space. But I do think we're kind of at the beginning of that now, and I start to feel that come through. And for me, doing this podcast has been such an interesting opportunity to take kind of, these very didactic kind of, descriptions within the gene keys, and within human design, which is how I kind of entered this information, where it's a bit more prescriptive. It's kind of like, you are the gate of determination, and it means this. And there's a lot of philosophy within that as well, but tracing it back to, how does that word determination relate to alignment? How does the word determination, gate 46, relate to delight, and kind of putting these pieces together, and just playing with those words, because they don't always seem like they are in any way related, right? But then kind of putting them side by side, it's like, oh yeah, totally. Okay. By being aligned and finding your delight, that makes you determined to rise up, all of these things. So,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I have to say, if I looked slightly distracted, your pusscat has been like embodying your words behind you
I
from
was so
when
funny.
it started. It looked like the wind was catching it as you were talking about the gate of wind. And then as rising up, it rose up underneath the table, but has then almost been knocking your pot plant over. So if I've been looking a bit distracted, I was just wondering how
I
that
was
was going
curious.
to play out.
I know that we're coming up on time here, so I thought it was a time piece. But no, that's Luna, the kitty cat,
Of course.
who loves to eat plants, and yeah.
She's a beauty. Yeah, no, that was why I was distracted. I was just thinking, how's that going to go? It's a big pot plant, but it's intact.
Yes, yes. Thank you for noticing. That would have been a fun, delightful
She's
crash.
even got the look of a big bear about her as
Oh,
well. So as you were
totally. Yeah.
talking about Alice in Asia.
Oh, so funny. Oh my gosh. Oh, well, yes, I think that's a really good segue to be distracted by the adorable plants and cat fiasco that's about to happen in the house. And I'd love, yeah, do you have any final words or anything to share about this season or anything we've talked about?
I've really loved, and I love this about your podcast, Alison, is the way that you overlay the different systems. And I think just as we were speaking to then, I just want to, again say, I love what you're doing, the way that you look at the different systems and then allow this kind of lovely dreaminess to bring in the connection and notice how they overlay and the depth then of the connection that we can feel to these times of year through that. And I think in terms of this particular feast day that we're coming up to with autumn equinox, so you said this podcast will be going out on autumn equinox. My feeling is that the moment is to take stock and to look at the year so far, but really to look at your previous chapter or your previous cycle. So I know that for me in my astrology at the moment, I'm coming towards the end of a 10-year cycle. So there's the invitation to really take stock and to think about like what stories do we want to tell about what's gone before, and what stories do we want to take with us, and to be discerning, like with sorting the wheat from the chaff, about the stories that we want to leave behind and the stories that we want to take with us and the stories that we want to share in celebration and in grief. Because those stories that we tell, both in our personal lives and from our own personal histories, but also the stories that inform what we want to create going ahead, are crucial. So my invitation would be to just like listen well and reflect well and let your celebrations be as full of joy and abundance as they are of honoring what you want to let go of, and to tell the stories of all that we've learnt so that we can continue rising up as we move forward into the rest of the year.
What a gorgeous invitation. Thank you for that. I will take that to heart. And yeah, the beautiful, it's been such a delight to talk to you. And I would love to know how our listeners can work with you or find you to see what your offerings are in the future. I highly recommend everything that Rebecca is doing in this world and bringing to the table. So yeah, let us know how we can find you.
So the easiest place to find me is on Instagram. So my Instagram, I'm on Instagram as Rebecca Baker 8888.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
So that's the easiest way to get in touch with me, and then you can find other contact details and other events and online offerings from there.
Beautiful. And I'll put that in the show notes as well. And I just wish you the happiest birthday solar return. And do you have any big plans for your birthday or any big resolutions or anything for the year ahead?
So I'm actually, when I left teaching in 2019, it was with the intention of becoming a civil celebrant. And then I started that training, and then the breathwork training came, there was a little lockdown in the middle of that, and then the breathwork training happened, and life has taken other directions, but in a beautiful circle. The couple that I was going to be marrying when I started that training are only just marrying tomorrow, and I will be conducting their ceremony for them. So I'll be out on Dartmoor tomorrow, holding their hand fasting ceremony, which it's just this beautiful coming round of something that I'm just so excited to do. They're a beautiful couple to be working with, and their ceremony that we've created is just full of ritual and symbolism and connection to the equinox. So that's what I'm most excited about. And then I'll be with family on my actual birthday, which will be really beautiful as well.
Beautiful. What sounds lovely. I'm so happy that circle is coming to a beautiful closure, and you get to do that. Oh my gosh. Wow. Well, have a lovely, amazing weekend. And yes, please reach out to Rebecca if you are interested in the sacred pause. And I definitely look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you so much, Alison. It's been gorgeous talking.
Yes, thank you. And thank you all for listening to that conversation, and hopefully taking a moment now to pause and to reflect, to celebrate, and to release the old and bless the new. I wish you a very beautiful Libra season ahead. If you sign up for this weekly update through email at astrosomatics.substack.com, then there is a little bit of additional information there this week. The 6 human design and gene keys gates of Libra season. And I didn't want to bring those into the spoken episode because we have a lot of other beautiful content here today. But I'll be posting that on my Instagram at Cycles of Time Podcast and at astro.somatics, as well as on the Substack at astrosomatics.substack.com, where you can sign up for free and receive a written transcript of this podcast along with the audio itself and some additional content and images each week. So I recommend that you do that if you're getting value from listening to this podcast. It shows a lot of support to build that Substack network, and it's just kind of a fun way to communicate there too. They have some notes and kind of their own mini social network that's nowhere near as overwhelming or annoying as some others. So if you're on Substack, find me there, astrosomatics.substack.com. And I just, thank you, Rebecca, so much for taking the time today to have that beautiful conversation and give your insights on this changing time of year, this beautiful time of year. So I'll see you all again next week for the new moon solar eclipse in Libra and lots of other exciting and life-changing transits. So stay tuned for that and have a beautiful week ahead. See you then.